I'm going to get our pictures out of the way. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform. And today we're going to talk about 2 new modules. Those modules are Simulator, which has been out for a little while and got a lot of excitement at the summit, and the Leadership module. And this is an opportunity for us to show them off to you. This is being recorded. Please mute your microphones unless you have a question. And okay, well, let's just jump in. Why Simulator? Imagine if you had a crystal ball and you could use that crystal ball to forecast what the business would generate in gross revenue, net income, and value, looking at and transferable value, looking at a couple of different scenarios. So if you can imagine the use cases, they're pretty exciting. There are 3 tools, right? They're really in Simulator. There are 2 tools. The main one, which is financial projections, and then another what if scenario, which goes to strategic capacity and price, and allows us to well, I'll show you what it allows us to do. And the other is leadership, and these are distinct, separate, and really unrelated innovations. So who is using Simulator, guys? Everyone should be using this. Whether you're a management consultant, business coach, CPA, M&A professionals, exit planners, wealth and insurance advisors, all of you, fractional CFOs, the entire community is using Simulator and should be using Simulator. And again, if you're at the summit, we have a very diverse professional community, and there was a ton of excitement in the room about what this tool can do. Now, there are a lot of reasons why you would use Simulator. The key reasons are educating the client, right? And that goes to business development. Now, what might this look like? And we'll play that out. And strategic planning. We're going to benchmark revenues. We're going to benchmark growth. We're going to project the future. We're going to be able to look at where on the time, as time goes on, when will we reach value sufficiency, and be able to run some what if scenarios. So how do you get there? It's funny, these buttons will be obsolete tomorrow morning. We have same buttons, but when you're in a module, we have a rev being released tomorrow with a button will actually be highlighted so that there's no confusion as to where you are in the system. How do you get there? Like the rest of the system, it's very easy, very intuitive. You click the Simulator button, and in you go. So we really want to look at current and projected strategic capacity and the impact that will have on transferable value. And in the Growth Drive world, transferable value, we talk in terms of M&A price, right? Intrinsic value and value for an internal transfer is related but different. And this is not a valuation module. Actually, we're getting ready to record the valuation class for the upgraded C3D certification. But I digress. We want to help our client reinforce discussions about value and transferable value. So total value of the business and how much of that might be reflected in a transaction end up in our client's pocket. And where does this fit in the Growth Drive methodology and process? Well, you have all hopefully read my book. In that book, there's a methodology and process. That methodology and process allows us to lead a conversation about, $15 million manufacturing company with EBITDA of 1.7 because of their strategic capacity, right? The quality of the business, they might garner a 2x multiple in a third-party sale. That is not a lot of money. It sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot of money. We need to get our client to understand, to go from 3.4 million to, say, for example, 20 million, they're not going to have to 6x income. They're going to have to achieve a higher multiple by increasing strategic capacity. And how do we demystify for the client the fact that they can go from 3.4 million to 20 million and what they're going to need to do? And this fits squarely in the growth drive process. And I will reinforce, and it is playing, we're having this, we're seeing more and more data come in. Those of you who are executing this process are crushing it. Just had a conversation 2 days ago with one of your colleagues who has really embraced this and is growing it by leaps and bounds, hiring people, getting new office space, et cetera. So exciting times. Okay, let's look at a couple of use cases. Your client says, I'm trying to get to 5 million in profits, but, all right, well, let's talk to that but. Or they're doing equity value planning. My business needs to net me 20 million when I sell it. All right, well, what will that need to look like? And Clarity, our strategic capacity and business value analysis software does just that. So we want to support you. We are committed to your success across your entire client journey. And how do you educate clients, educate your COIs, and at the end of the day, expand your reach and impact with your clients and with the people with whom you collaborate, COIs with whom you collaborate in engagements. All right. We all know what transferable value refers to and how to get there inside the system. You know, once we understand the total value of the business and how much can be monetized, the next logical conversation goes to sufficiency of value and the realm of the possible, right? Just because I've said $20 million doesn't mean I'm going to turn down 35 if we're able to sustainably grow the business there. This module simulator complements the equity value planner, okay? And those of you who are using the equity value planner, this is, you know, by outward appearances, a tool that's really designed for wealth advisors. It's not. It's being used very, very effectively by business advisors and wealth advisors with their clients. And in fact, Larry and I, when we were recording one of the C3D modules, we go into this in detail. Larry absolutely loves this. Larry Prince of Prince Leadership, and uses it with all of his clients because of the power of the conversation that it has. So we figured out what the sufficient value for the business is, right? What our minimum to meet our personal wealth goals. Now we're going to get into planning and starting conversations about what might the future look like. Strategic capacity drives growth and value. And again, get a Sharpie, write it on your arm, put it on a Post-it, stick it on your computer. Strategic capacity drives growth and value. It can drive it up. Insufficient, low strategic capacity can drive it down. So when level 2 generates data for strategic planning, simulator predicts potential future outcomes. Imagine the conversations we can have with our client. And we're going to jump into those 2 modules right now. Very, very easy, very intuitive, as are all the modules inside the system. And some great graphics. So rather than staying in the presentation, let's go out, let's wildcat out into the world. I've just jumped, here I am in, out on the web, software as a service, and I'm inside Simulator. So this is our friend Diane Ridge Specialty Tooling, and I'm going to scroll down and show you the information we've gathered and then the reports we generate. So we are pulling information from other modules. We've only put in 2 revenue numbers at this point. If you're just opening up Simulator, it is part of the level 2 suite, okay? It is included with the growth driver level subscription package. And we're going to start getting into some benchmarking. Now, imagine you're sitting in your office and you're looking at this for yourself. You're going to start asking some questions. We'll come back to those in a sec. We have some key financial metrics pulled from data that's already been entered. We have our gross revenue and net income. And then we're putting in numbers for the 2 years prior, last year and 2 years ago. Again, gross and net. We're looking at profitability. Again, you get your juices flowing. We have increasing profitability. That's great. Why is that happening, et cetera? If the industry is growing at 6% and this business is growing at 10.6, that is fantastic. And at the deal table is going to invite some scrutiny. If you can support this number, then you are going to be very attractive. And if it turns out that this number is baloney because your bookkeeping is off, you will probably have really hurt your credibility in due diligence. Here's what strategic capacity looks like, just the score over time, guys. This business 57 going to a 92. And then we take the conversation, we say, okay, you've been growing at 8.7%. Now let's ask, tell me, Diane, how fast do you plan to grow? What do you think your growth rate is if we take the, move this project forward? Oh, I can grow at 20%. And how is that's for your gross revenue. How about your net income? Oh, we have some efficiency projects. We have, getting raw materials cheaper, what have you. We're going to increase net income by 28%. And Diane, how much capital do you need to double your current revenues? I think it would take all things being equal of $3 million. Again, think about the conversations that this would power at the front end while we're doing the data input. This is a great place. I know Barry, you're on this call. This is a great place to dig in, right? To ask those of you who have a financial outlook, who are financial experts, that is a terrific point of conversation, especially when it comes to planning. Now, with the gross revenues and net income we've put in, we then can do a regression projection going into the future. And here's what it looks like in a chart. CEOs are not big fans. I'm going to make a vast generalization. Not big fans of pages and pages of numbers. This is crisp. We lay it out. Here's your growth at your historic rate. Here's your growth at the rate you said you're going to grow. Begs a lot of questions. And here's your industry. Okay. So net income, same deal. Play it out. And then we get into the charts. Okay. And the charts is where the magic happens. So we're going to, projecting gross revenue growth. And here's at our historic rate. I can black these out. So here's at our historic rate. If you keep doing what you've been doing, Diane, we're going to grow from 54 million this year to 82 million in 2029. Now, you've said you're going to grow at 20%. That would take you, that would mean your result in 2025 years out is $134 million. Okay, 20% every year is really hard to sustain, but let's leave it there. The industry is 118. Let's get rid of this manually projected. So now we're starting to educate the client about underperforming the industry, which is not good, right? Not accretive to value. We do the same with net income. I'm also going to show you a trick, guys. You see these three bars here? And by the way, we announced this morning that we are coding the compare module. Compare allows us to compare the level 1 assessments of a cohort of users. Could be a senior leadership team, could be for a senior CEO workshop marketing event, a Vistage group, your mastermind peer group of clients. I'm thinking of Vince Mastervita with his T3 Academy. Click on these three. Okay, and this is going to be replicated in Compare, and you can grab these charts so you can easily put them in presentations, client deliverables, etc. All right, little user training there. Chart 2 does the same thing with net projections. Now we get into where it gets interesting. We're going to look at transferable value, right? Now, we need to have two conversations. What does your value growth look like at your current strategic capacity? And what will it look like if we increase strategic capacity? We have our same historic manual input and industry, right? This is a heck of a conversation. Let's get rid of that. This is a conversation. So your value, if you keep growing the way you have, is 27 million. If we could figure out what others in your industry are doing, it's 38, 5 years out. That's an $11 million delta. I'm interested. Is anyone, nobody's going to pass that up, or they're not going to pass it up without making that conscious decision. Now, how about if we increase strategic capacity? Now, the implication here is if we're going to hit these growth numbers, we in all likelihood will need to increase strategic capacity, right? The sophistication and quality of the business. If we are going to increase at 10% annually, right? This is AGR, which, 10%, the first year getting to that 10% increase is, let's scroll back up here. The first year getting that 10% increase, we're moving from 57 to 63. Remember, increases in strategic capacity score are exponential, they're logarithmic. So as this looks like a straight line, but in terms of difficulty, it is an accelerating curve. So you're going to go from 57 to 63. That's relatively hard, but we're building good habits. Okay. In year two, we're going from 63 to 69. Well, all right. This is now we're getting into the 70, that magic 70 line, which logarithmically is significantly harder than running a business that's in the mid 50s, and up and up and up. Okay. I would anticipate that the business would start to plateau somewhere here, but we're just projecting it without that bias. So I'm scrolling back down here. So current strategic capacity. What happens if we increase your strategic capacity? Well, okay, now we're going from historic growth rate 44 to 44. And to save ourselves brain cramps, we put them all together on one chart, okay? So what we have in this final chart, and I think it's the most interesting chart in the simulator, is we have value or historic growth rate with current strategic capacity. There it is. Let's black these out, okay? So here it is. Now, if we do it at our historic growth rate with 10%, so we're going to go from 27 to 44. And those of you who have been working in the system a while know that we'll probably double dip here. What simulator doesn't do is say, wow, if you increase your strategic capacity by 10%, the data tells us we would reasonably expect that your income is going to rise. So this is a conservative number, okay? Now, what happens if we do your manually input rate at your current strategic capacity? Now, to do 20% growth, we're going to have to increase strategic capacity, right? But we've more than doubled the value of the business. And then if they're going to hit their 20% year over year, we've gone from 27 million to 96. The important consideration here is what is going to change. And I'll scroll up here and let's get rid of industry. Listen, Diane, we have the opportunity to, if you want to grow the business at 20%, and increase strategic capacity, because this $97 million number is pretty compelling. What needs to change, right? That's the key question. Strategically, what needs to change? And again, if you think about the potential outcomes that this informs for a strategic plan and the conversations going into that plan, and maybe this is the link to the leadership module we're about to look at, very cool, right? And this is why you guys were so excited down here in Charleston. The other part of this tool is in simulator is the strategic capacity and price. And there's only one variable we can change at this time. Here it's a what if. So what if we take your strategic capacity from 50 to 70? Remember, 70 is our sort of our break point. If we can get them to 70, a lot of good things are happening. And again, I'll repeat it, moving from a 57 to a 70 is not easy. It's only 13 points, but it is an exponential jump. So we're going to go from an assumed multiple at maximum strategic capacity of a little over 6. And here's how that plays out. But we're going to get a correction to the multiple because of strategic capacity. At 57, our post due diligence multiple would be 2.9. At 70, our post due diligence multiple we would predict to be almost 3.6. Okay, well, how does that impact a price? Well, that adds $3.4 million to the predicted price that this business could command. So we're having here's our projected post due diligence price, 14.8, 18.2. So it's just a handy way to say, and if we really max this out and you create a best-in-class business, 85 or higher, we're going to have a profound impact. That's a $20 million jump. Okay. Hello. And that is all through the power of the multiple. Also, in this strategic capacity and price module, we have introduced the concept of premiums. So at 85, you'll notice that my max multiple here, post due diligence multiple, I'm getting a little extra juice at the deal table because this is a killer business. Okay, 85 is we're getting into, you're going to see a bump on the forehead. We're getting into unicorn territory. They're very rare. They exist, but they're very rare. If we also are paying premiums, we've put in a premium for revenue stripes. And if we take this, let's take it to 90, we've added an extra point. It's still conservative. I mean, a 90 is essentially a perfect business. We've added a full point at the deal table. Okay. We've had a post due diligence multiple increase of 4.1, 4x, very attractive. So great way to just talk through with your client. And again, the name of the game is educating our clients. All right. So that is simulator. I'm going to jump back into our deck here and shift gears and go to look at leadership. I'm going to put leadership in a little bit of context. So when we talk about leadership, there are a number of objectives that we have for the client. We want to increase we want to decrease owner dependence. We want to make sure that the senior leadership team is aligned with and accountable to the shareholders' goals. But we need to make sure that we start with, are they aligned? Are they aligned with current strategic capacity and where the business is going, right? Strategic intent. Are we starting to delegate with accountability? And this tool is going to help you design that. Collaborative accountability, I have to call it out. 2 words that should always be glued together. We need to create a senior leadership team that is highly effective, lives collaborative accountability. And this can be used for team true-ups, for redefining accountabilities, succession planning, et cetera. And you may see things that I'm not calling out here. That's great. That's great. One of the most fun feedback, some of the most fun feedback we get from you is how you were using this in the field. And I've got to tell you that at least once a week, one of you will call me or we'll be in a meeting and I'll be in a, wait, what? You're doing what? Because you're finding so many creative ways to deploy this tool out in your engagements. So what do you see? Let me know. By the way, maybe this is a good time to say, if you have ideas or you see something that we missed or something can be improved or maybe it could be excised, whatever, let us know. Because I know that I can see, there are a couple of you on this call who have given me suggestions that that they're now out in the code, right? They're now out in the tools. So let us know. What do you see? How can we improve it? Leadership builds on SLT or senior leadership team alignment, right? You can use level 1 with the entire senior leadership team to create, to analyze alignment, right? And then to perhaps lead an alignment workshop through which you create a consensus view of strategic capacity. Very important. You can then involve the senior leadership team in the level 2 deep analysis. And I'm not going to talk through that here. If you want to discuss that in more detail, take C3D, frankly. Call me. I'm happy to discuss it. Now, in strategic planning, we must identify, we must create accountability. Who is going to be accountable for what? And so that's in planning. Analyze, design, execute, right? Our growth drive action cycle. In design, who is going to be accountable for what? As we execute, we need to track how each functional area is doing. And you'll see what I mean in a sec. So wish we were in a room together live. I'd ask for a show of hands. Who's done a senior leadership alignment report? These are insanely powerful. They're also a great way they're a great project. They're high value to you as an advisor, help you pay your mortgage. But the value to the client is fantastic. Now, I think I said this earlier. I'll repeat it. We are coding the ability to run SLT alignment reports. It's called a compare. Like it's going to be a compare functionality. It's going to be a new button on your left side nav bar. You'll be able to compare these in all sorts of ways. So senior leadership alignment report, what does it look like? Imagine you have 5 leaders. This is actually a real case. And this is for Dimension 1. And here are the answers. We've anonymized it. And now, so I'm spending a couple minutes here because it's important to have a consensus view and to have workshopped, to have really educated the entire senior leadership team about where the business is, where it's going, and to make sure they've all been heard as to where it is today. Right? Senior leadership alignment, incredibly powerful. Now we're getting into planning and execution, and we need another tool. And that tool is we call the leadership module, and we're going to jump into it right now. Okay, what leadership does. I'll click on this link again, and yes, I want to leave it. Thank you. What does the leadership module do? The leadership module in the growth drive methodology, as described in my book that I flashed around earlier, there are 24 growth driving objectives. There's a 25th, which is time to market, but the 3 dimensions of growth each have 8 growth driving objectives. Under the premise that if more than one person is accountable, no one is accountable, a premise to which I subscribe, then we need to assign primary accountability for each of the 24 growth driving objectives. We need to put them into executive functions. Now, I'm going to slow it down here. 4 executive functions. Those 4 executive functions are, let's go back one here, are executive, finance, operations, and revenue. Now, your business may have a CEO. Well, there's probably somebody calling them the CEO. Whether they're meeting those accountabilities or not is yet to be determined. You're going to have someone who's accountable for finance, someone who's accountable for operations, and someone who's accountable for revenue. Depending on the size of the business, this can be relatively simple or highly complex. But when we get into, I'm going to click on this link again. So we've divided it among these 4 areas. What we're doing in the tool is we're also starting to introduce the definition of the strategic, right? Anyone with a C in front of their name has a strategic role, and may have tactical people below them, and they may have a tactical role as well. But so what's the fundamental role of the CEO? It is to maximize shareholder value within the context of the business's vision and mission. And anybody who softballs and says the CEO's role is strategy, yes, but that doesn't tell us anything, right? Maximize shareholder value within the context of the vision and mission. And then we give an explanation. Read it to your client, cut it, paste it, put it where you want. This is good stuff. Now, we can run this based on the level 1 analysis and the level 2 analysis. So although this module is included in the growth driver level, so those of you who only have access to level 1, I'm sorry, you do not have access to to this tool. And it wouldn't really be relevant to, in all likelihood, to your goals for your advisory business. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to run it for level 1 and for level 2. So you can access it as soon as you're done with level 1. So we're going to focus here on, we'll look at level 2. You'll notice, by the way, this should not surprise those of you who have used the tool. You will not be surprised that the score has been right-sized. All right, so the CEO is primarily accountable for 7 growth driving objectives. The CFO also 7. The COO, or the operational, this could be a director of operations. It could be, whatever the title is, they are accountable for 5. And the revenue, CRO or similar, is accountable for 5 as well. Now, the world is not a perfect place. And what I believe we're going to see play out, and in fact, this could be an improvement on the tool, is where are these accountabilities today and where should they be, right? Because often in a client, for example, you have the person who's calling themselves the CEO, the president, your client, is also the chief sales dog. Well, should they be? Is that a function for which they should be accountable? Can the business, is that perhaps an owner dependence issue? All right, so here we are. We have these 7 primary accountabilities for the executive function. We list the dimensions. This is going to help you for planning, right? And the score. So over here, we just give the rank. The top answer, we're the best in the world, is a 4. The probably true is a 3. They're not really a 2. And we don't do that at all as a 1. Same over here. We have more complex answers. So we put them in as a percentage, as a score. Okay. Do not try to transpose these scores into strategic capacity. They are not the same thing. You'll drive yourself bonkers. All right. So, and maybe I'll drill in here. The CEO is accountable for creating effective senior leadership. The CEO is absolutely accountable for culture, for the vision, strategic planning, and for shepherding execution, making sure that there's a defensible market. Legal has to live somewhere, and let's put the CEO in charge of it, especially since we get into governance, etc. Brand is the outward manifestation of culture. So these are logically together, and then the business story. Being able to tell the story. So at some point in dimension 3, this is not going to matter to someone who's just trying to create sustainable growth. But if they're preparing to sell, someone has to be primarily accountable for making sure that the staff, the advisors, consultants, etc., create a business story in words and numbers that can be included when we're sitting down with a potential buyer, right? Now, you're going to notice those are primary accountabilities. The senior leadership team is collaboratively accountable for all 24 of the growth driving objectives. However, we're going to call out some specific, like, hey, if you need to lean on someone, the CEO could be leaned on people, hiring and training. Why? Growth, right? And people productive and loyal. Again, why? All right, so I've kind of belabored CEO, but I wanted to use the executive function as our sort of our learning lab here about how the tool works. Financial. We've defined the fundamental role of a CFO, and this is, these little words, and capitalization. You've just moved from, what's the difference between a bookkeeper and a CFO? It's vast. And capitalization. So, well, whatever. I'm editorializing. What's the CFO accountable for? Financial. There's one in each of the 3 dimensions. Primary for margins, right? making sure that there's a market into which to grow, measuring growth compared to the market, measuring and maintaining, understanding market share, and then they're collaborative on recurring revenues. Now you're going to see these primary accountability land somewhere else. Recurring revenues. Why isn't the finance? Because the finance doesn't sell anything. They don't generate recurring revenues. Someone else does, right? Vision, planning, and execution. The CEO and the CFO must collaborate on this, right? And the business story. The business story is in words and numbers. Okay, so collaborative accountability. We move into operations, COO, a VP of ops, etc. Standard operating procedures, right? People, productive and loyal, of course. People, hiring and training. HR is going to fall under the COO. Customer sat, delivering on time and to spec is a direct result of strong SOPs, right? That generates high customer sat. And then innovation. How are we going to foment, capture innovation? Collaborative on culture, of course. Sales process, that's right in the word, SOP, process, and marketing process. And there's a lot of technology that comes to bear here. So they're going to collaborate with revenue on those issues. What's revenue primarily accountable for? Well, you guys can answer this in your sleep. The sales process, the marketing process, high recurring revenues, making sure that our customers, by the way, one of the best companies I ever worked for, customer support reported to sales. Hello. Marketing also reported to sales. It was a killer business that became a cautionary tale. Anyway, making sure there's a broad customer base, revenue, right? Are we selling to one customer or to many? And unique products and services, product differentiation. And we put this here because the product management function is in my opinion, belongs under revenue. Now, guys, these are not tablets handed down from a mountain, right? No, Moses is not bringing those to us. This is a great first pass at what the world, the delegation would look like. Primary accountability could look like. How it's going to look for your client. Think of the workshop you could lead just based on this. Imagine the workshop if you had these 4 functional areas in the room and we really started talking through who's doing what, who's playing on the wrong side of the fence, who's pocket vetoing, who's, I would do it, but Bob always does. Those types of conversations, because what we're trying to get to is a coordinated team with collaborative accountability that is able to meet every Monday morning. And as we go down our business flow scorecard, on paper, embedded in 90.io as it is, et cetera, the CEO needs to be able to look up and either say mine or, okay, well, this should be what's going on here. This becomes a cheat sheet, right? A crib sheet for make sure we create and maintain collaborative accountability. I hope that all makes sense. Okay, I know there are going to be questions. So here we are, and we get into the fundamental roles, impact on value, accountability. So guys, here is an example. This is an unveiling and a high level training. This will be added, is being added as soon as we're done with C3D. This will be added to the launch. C3D coming soon to a learning management system near you. I'm super excited about how this is evolving. I think you'll really enjoy it, get a ton of value out of it. It's the only training like it in the market. Okay. And then, many of you are already subscribers, so we won't go into sales mode. But I will say that if you're still considering becoming a growth driver, adding the growth drive methodology, process, tools to your practice, we get terrific reviews from your colleagues. And I will tell you our turnover, that we have very low, what's called churn. People come and stay. They love it. And I'm thrilled. And I think a lot of that is that we listen to you and we are committed to your success. You are working with clients and we take your feedback and implement it. So with that, I'm going to, I see that there are some questions in chat. Tina had to leave at 12:15. Bummer. I'll send her Mike DeSato asked, does this tie back to the equity value module screen where we do this? Yes, it pulls from the equity value screen. The new, we did a webinar last week on the continuity risk module. That pulls more heavily from the equity value module, but yeah, it does pull back. And you know me, Mike, right? Watch for the next evolution. There'll be a closer integration in the reports between those two. So those are the first two questions. Guys, it's open mic. Hit me up. If you have questions, I'm here and happy to address.
So George, let me follow up on my question. So when I say that equity value planner module in dimension one, right?
Yes.
Clarity one, there's a simulator at the very end, right, where it shows you current on the left-hand side. It shows you where your current strategic capacity and value is today, and then on the right-hand side, it asks you a couple of questions. It asks you about what you project your multiple to be when you go to when you exit. Well, it asks you how many years, what's your runway, how many years do you have until exit, and then it asks two other questions. It says, what is your multiple at that point? And then what is your profitability at that point? So I guess my question was like, okay, if I'm there and how does this simulator tool that you just demonstrate coordinate or align or, work with that particular screen?
Sure. So what I would be doing is I'd be taking the pro forma from the equity value planner. Mike,
Okay.
that's a great question. Take the pro forma from the equity value planner and
Right.
say, here's where we need to be. Now let's look at simulator and see how many years out we can get there. And what we can do this on straight growth. We can do this on increasing strategic capacity, or a combination of the two. And might we be able to accelerate? You've said you want to hit this number in 5 years. Perhaps we can accelerate it. You're going to be able to lead those conversations and discover that using the two tools in combination.
So I guess what you're telling me is that when I go through the Clarity One tool, and instead of projecting what I'd like it to be or what it should be, just leave it the way it is and show them this is what will happen. This is why you won't make it. If you stay where you are, in 5 years you're going to look like this, and then take off from there and say, okay, what kind of increase in strategic capacity do you need to have to get to the number you need, right?
Yes.
And so you do it. Okay, so you kind of demonstrate the status quo, and then you transition to this simulation module where you kind of project out in 5 years, what does that strategic capacity store have to go to
Absolutely, Mike. And in equity value planner, you can plug in a multiple.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, and in simulator, you're pulling the strategic capacity from level 2, that score, and then projecting it forward. So you're able to say, okay, well, here I'm just manually plugging it in. That's a discovery tool, right? That's a biz dev client education tool. Simulator is a planning tool. So we're like, okay, well, you can't plug a 5 in there because we never get to a 5x, or maybe we do. You can use it to extend your G2 on that topic. Cool.
Understood.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Who else? Other questions? That's a great question, Mike. Oh, we don't have a shy crowd, do we?
Oh, I'll keep going if someone wants to jump in. So, so the way you did, and the second thing what was that?
Leadership.
The leadership team thing, right? You broke it down into like functions, right? C-level functions, right? So I'm working on a situation which I'm going to be talking to you about on Monday. Where I went through level 2. I went through the alignment report. I went to level. I finally got everyone through level 2, but I'm dealing with 9 partners in a firm, right? And so, having been one of 9 partners in my prior life, I know how that works. Everybody thinks they're in charge, and everybody, and if something goes wrong, they point the finger at someone else. But I guess in that context, partners need to kind of take on these different functions, even though they feel like, well, we're all, we're collaborative. and not everyone's going to do everything. So you need to kind of segregate them. They need to self-segregate into the CEO function, the CFO function, the sales function, revenue function, operations function. Would that be a correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have not worked inside a CPA firm. I did work, I remember my days a long time ago at Skadden Arps, where we had a managing partner. We had the name Joe Flom, but then we had a managing partner. But the great Tony Arbisi, who is now well, the great Tony Arbisi was running the firm on a day. He was the COO, and did a fantastic job. And you're absolutely right. Just because it's a partnership doesn't mean that there shouldn't be someone accountable. And if it isn't one of the partners, then they need to consider making a hire to meet those accountabilities. And it could be that we end up with a little bit of a bucket. Partnerships are different animals, but they're still businesses that must be run efficiently and effectively. There's still businesses that need a vision, a mission, a strategy to execute, and frankly, typically or often businesses that might do a better job. That's a topic for another day, but heck yes, Mike. Other questions? Oh, if there are no more questions, we'll gain 11 minutes a day back. I'd like to say thank you very much. Listen, if you have questions, you can, hit this QR code, call me, send an email to either sales@ or support@growth-drive.com. And we'd be happy to take care of you. Okay. We're here. We're committed to your success, and I'll look forward to talking with you very soon. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a peaceful Veterans Day. Talk soon.